The Omni King's Tournament of Power leads into its second round in the Zen Exhibition match as Gohan steps up to battle against the oldest brother of the trio of dangers, the deadly Lavender. After suffering a painful defeat by the hands of Majin Buu, Universe 9 looks to up the ante by doing whatever it may take to win, which also includes killing your opponent if it means getting the job done. What's going on, Dragon Ball fans? Welcome to my Dragon Ball Super Episode 80 review entitled Awaken Your Sleeping Battle Spirit, Son Gohan's Fight, leading into Dragon Ball Super Episode 81 next week with the battle between Bergamo and Goku. And indeed, guys, what an episode this was, showcasing Gohan, finally having Gohan compete in not only trying to prove himself to his father, but also testing out his battle power as well. And I also want to go ahead and add that if you guys want to go ahead and watch Dragon Ball Super with the English subtitles, you guys can go ahead and visit crunchyroll.com in order for you guys to go ahead and watch the episode in its entirety. And a quick plug before we begin, in case you guys are not following me at Twitter, make sure to go ahead and follow me at Twitter at UnrealEntGaming. The link will be down in the description below for all the latest in Dragon Ball news, information, and updates. And of course, if you guys want to keep notified of what's going on, make sure to follow me at Twitter. And of course, if you guys are new to this channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button on your way out. And don't forget to turn on notifications. That way you guys yourselves are notified of whenever a Dragon Ball discussion, review, or gameplay video is posted on this channel. Your feedback and of course your support really means a lot to me. So be sure to go ahead and spread the word about the channel, guys. It really means a lot to me. So for those, including myself, who've wanted to see Gohan compete or at least do something in Dragon Ball Super, our wishes have finally been granted. But even though as much as we wanted to see Gohan do something epic for a change, something happened in this particular fight against Lavender that kind of threw Gohan back a little bit, allowing him to be at a disadvantage. But the episode kicks off right where we left off with Gohan staring down Lavender, with Gohan saying, translated by Herms, "It's been a long time since I've been a part of a tournament. I need to get back into the swing of things." And Lavender doesn't even seem like he cares because Gohan's trying to analyze Lavender, and Lavender seems very imposing. But then we get to see Goku talk to Gohan, and he also tells Gohan not to hold back just because he can't sense Lavender's ki. So that's the point here. It's Gohan cannot feel his ki, with Gohan then responding by saying, rather than getting hung up by my opponent, I need to focus on testing my own strength first. And it's kind of cool how Gohan approaches Lavender, and we get to see firsthand just how small Lavender is compared to Gohan. But it was actually Gohan that rushed right into fighting Lavender, and this gave me such a nostalgic feel to go back to Dragon Ball Z, because finally we see Gohan in action against Lavender. And Lavender seemed to have held his own against Gohan for the most part until he jumped up in the sky, and that's when he grabbed Gohan's arm and he pretty much swung him around. And then right then and there we see how he poisons him. It was his breath. And as he grabbed Gohan's arm, legit, this fight must have started about 10 seconds in, and Gohan gets blinded. Gohan couldn't see anything, and then right then and there we see how Lavender begins to laugh, and we see that coming from his breath, there's like this purplish little mist going on, and Gohan couldn't see. Gohan was then blinded, and we get to see how Lavender then, kind of like, puffs his little air mist into his hand, and he begins to punch Gohan. So now he has poison surrounding his hands, and Lavender seems to be having the upper hand and poisoning Gohan about 10 seconds into this fight. Kind of disappointing, but either way, we get to see how the Supreme Kai of Universe number 9 is just gloating and bragging about this. And we also get to see how Gohan's blinded by the poison, and we see how Hercule says that's dirty, with Rose saying Gohan should just give up. And then we see how the Kaioshin offers some sensu beans, but we see how Gohan is just legitimately getting thrown around the ring because he can't see, he can't sense his ki. So Gohan has a huge disadvantage. It looks like he also has like this darkish, purplish eyeliner going underneath his eyes, and Gohan was kind of stagnant at first. Even though Lavender is small in stature, the poison around his hands, the poison in his breath, it surely has the upper hand here against Gohan, because Gohan can't seem to even detect where Lavender is. And then we see Bergamo says something very interesting, as Bergamo says it looks like him being blinded has heightened his other senses. And we get to see how Gohan is trying to focus in on detecting, the hearing portion of his senses and trying to hear where Lavender is. And we get to see right before, Lavender is about to kick Gohan in the head, he blocks. Gohan blocks. It was pretty incredible to see how Gohan can still sense his opponent in terms of hearing him move around the ring. So he was trying to rely more on the movement portion of the aspect than anything else. So he was trying to hear where Lavender was. Since he can't see him, since he can't sense him, might as well hear him out. So Gohan is actually trying to defend himself, all while Lavender thinks that this is all a fluke and that Gohan keeps countering all of his attacks based on just hearing him out. So even though Gohan can't see anything, Gohan can't sense anything, we get to see how he's at least trying to hear him out. So we get to see how Lavender now begins to levitate around the ring. That way he can't really pick up on on his, hearing, that we can't hear him. And we see how Gohan can't tell where Lavender is now that he's flying around in the air. And I will say, once Lavender got up in the air, he started blasting Gohan, and that's where Gohan fell at a disadvantage because he wasn't able to catch up on what Lavender was doing. Even though we see Basil on the sideline, he had his head down. Ro, the Supreme Kai of Universe 9, just keeps on egging everyone on. He is so annoying in this episode, and we get to even see how Universe 7 is really beginning to get annoyed of him. But even while Lavender is just blasting Gohan with all of these, energy blasts and all these ki waves, right then and there, Gohan transforms into a Super Saiyan. And right then and there, Lavender is very, very confused. He's very baffled as to what just happened, and we see the return of Super Saiyan Gohan. Although we can all argue about the hair strand that he has, he no longer has like that one piece of hair that comes down his head. Either way, Gohan becomes a Super Saiyan, with Lavender replying by saying, "I'll kill you," and Goku having to reply by saying, "You're doing great, Gohan," even though I really doubt that he's doing great whatsoever. We see how Mr. Satan is saying this is bad, with Goku saying maybe, but Gohan does a lot better when he's under pressure, and Gohan says to himself, "I got more power than this," and he begins to power up, of course. So obviously enough, Gohan still has his dormant powers within him, but at first he became a Super Saiyan more so than anything else, and everyone seems to be impressed with the Super Saiyan, transformation that Gohan had achieved, and Toppo seems interested to see a life form that can alter its battle power. So Toppo sees Gohan transform, and he seems to be a little intrigued by this. So that right there just blew my mind, because again, we don't know anything about Toppo, but that's when Lavender decides to go on the offensive in attacking Gohan yet again from the sky, with Gohan having to block and pretty much reflect all of the energy blast from Lavender, onto the pillars and away from, himself. So even though Gohan can't see, as Lavender is moving, Gohan is pretty much moving in Lavender's direction. So for those of you out there that have predicted that Gohan was going to get, slaughtered, like early on in the beginning he did, because Lavender caught his arm and he was breathing right in his face, and that breath pretty much poisoned his eyes. He couldn't see anything. But then right then and there, we get to see how Gohan begins to turn the tides as a Super Saiyan, which I greatly enjoyed. And going Super Saiyan just made the effects of the poison worse, because it begins to kind of drag Gohan down a little bit. So Gohan can't see, but he's using his own ki as a radar to track Lavender's movements. So he's trying to detect the motions in the atmosphere to try to see where Lavender is. And we see how everyone is observing this, including Whis. And Whis is saying that the poison has gotten worse ever since he transformed. So Gohan continues to carry out the fight against Lavender, and then out of nowhere, Gohan just drops down from the sky, and he's beginning, to kind of like hold on to his stomach. He's in pain, and he goes from a Super Saiyan back down to his base form. And we see how, everyone is talking about how the poison had really had a negative effect on Gohan's body. And Lavender doesn't stop by, relentlessly pounding Gohan. He's punching him in the face. And Goku, although he looks concerned, again, we see how Lavender is just breathing poison all up on Gohan. Lots and lots of poison. It wasn't like Lavender just poisoned his eyes. There was a certain scene where, the poison engulfed Gohan's body, and Lavender was on the offensive, quite to the point where Gohan was getting pushed back. So I'm gonna have to say the overall fight dynamics of this battle was very, very well done. We saw how early on Lavender had an advantage, then we saw how Gohan turned it around, and then once again Lavender turned it back around on Gohan, and then Gohan becomes a Super Saiyan again, and we see how this giant yellow aura begins to engulf the entire tournament, and we have like this golden yellowish black background between Gohan fighting Lavender, and it was great to see. One of my favorite fights so far in this tournament. I would have to say this fight was definitely better than Basil versus Boo, but then we get to see how the Grand Priest declares that the match is a draw. So that was the big kicker. So Lavender didn't win, Gohan didn't win either, and Gohan says, I won, and even though they kind of both tired each other out, the Grand Priest declares that this fight is officially a draw. But even with Gohan's Kamehameha technique, he still got pushed back. But even while, Lavender was using his toxic breath on Gohan again, we see how Gohan just goes right through it. He grabs Lavender and he just drives him right down in the ground. He pretty much locks Lavender in some sort of like WWE master lock, and he just completely rushes down in the ground, and they both pretty much knocked each other out. So this fight is a draw, which pretty much sets up for Bergamo versus Goku, because again, I'm pretty sure the tournament rules are going to go as follows: best of three actually. So if you get 2 victories, you win. So it kind of makes sense for Boo to beat Basil, and for this fight to be a draw, in which results in, you know, Goku fighting Bergamo next. And Gohan stands up, and it's kind of funny because after Gohan slams Lavender into the ground, Gohan stands right back up as a Super Saiyan, and he says, "I won," and then he falls right back down. And we see how the Daishin loving this, and Universe 7 is kind of concerned, especially with Beerus's reaction. We get to see how Goku walks on over and finally gives Gohan a Senzu Bean instead of throwing it to his opponent. So Gohan apologizes to Goku in saying, you know, "I'm sorry, Dad, for failing," but Goku says, you know, his fight was exciting, and Gohan says that he will do better. But then we see the Grand Priest give a word from the Omni King that he formally announces that the losing universe will be wiped out. And Beerus's reaction is priceless because we all already know that right now it's gonna boil down to Goku and Bergamo, the final two people. So we see how Beerus's reaction was priceless because once the Daishinkan said, okay, you know, courtesy of the Omni King, whoever loses this fight, your universe is gonna be destroyed. So everyone's initial reaction was total shock. And I told you guys this from the beginning, the Omni King will make an example of universe number 9. It's bound to happen at the Daishinkan. He told everyone, the Omni King says, the final match is going to determine whether you live or you die. So everyone is pretty much in panic mode, and I will say, as entertaining as this fight was, I'm going to have to put this fight slightly above Majin Buu versus Basal, only because there was a lot of back and forth action, and we finally got to see something from Gohan. We finally got to, may have seemed like, you know, he didn't come down hard enough. He actually came down full force, you know, while driving his opponent down face first into the ground. So it was a very, very intense, you know, scene when Gohan went down into the ground, resulting in Lavender going down face first and knocking both people out. So Gohan is yet again excited about this because everyone else, including the Supreme Kai, Hercule, Beerus, Ro, Seadra, everyone else seems to be so concerned about the very existence of their universe. We see how Goku is the only one that seems, you know, to be excited. And even after the Supreme Kai told Hercule, we see how Hercule just like dropped down to the ground because he fainted because he was so like scared out of his mind. So that was pretty funny to see. Overall, guys, this was a pretty good episode. I wouldn't say this episode was rushed, even though I would have loved to see Gohan versus Lavender kind of get dragged out a little bit more. This fight was definitely going to be a setup for Bergamo versus Goku, with the Daishinkan pretty much making the rules, you know, clear as day in saying that this is going to determine everything, so do your best, which I personally enjoyed. And we get to see how the Daishinkan actually said something and looked over to Whis as he was telling him that, and Beerus and everyone else seemed to be at a complete shock by this. But by the very end of this, we see how Bergamo slowly comes down from his stage as Goku is staring right at him. And again, this is definitely going to set up for a very entertaining battle because the episode preview shows us something very, very interesting, in which I will talk about in the breakdown review. But post your comments down below, guys. What are your overall thoughts on this battle? Because for me, having to see Gohan having to be overcome by this poison early on was definitely a good thing, because if Gohan had the upper hand early on, that would have ultimately sucked, because having Gohan have the advantage early on would have kind of dragged it on a little bit. But I'm actually kind of glad that it resulted in a DQ, in a double knockout, because now this sets up for the final battle of this tournament. But post your comments down below. What are your overall thoughts on Gohan versus Lavender? Do you guys believe that Gohan versus Lavender so far was better than Majin Buu versus Basal, or do you guys feel the opposite? What are your overall thoughts at Gohan being at a disadvantage after being poisoned, after being unable to sense Lavender's ki, and being so naive as to falling for Lavender's tactics and tricks? What are your overall thoughts in Gohan being a little rusty in the ring? Post your comments down below, guys. Thank you all for watching. If you guys are Dragon Ball fans, don't forget to subscribe to this channel for all the latest Dragon Ball news, information, updates, discussions, and of course reviews. If you guys cannot wait for the next episode of Dragon Ball Super, go ahead and slap a like on this video. Tune back in for more. What are your overall thoughts based on the episode preview that we saw? I'm going to go ahead and talk more of that in my breakdown review, alongside sharing predictions later on tonight and seeing what the community has to say in regards to Dragon Ball Super episode 81. Regardless of the situation, finally we see Gohan at least do something, because back in Battle of Gods, Resurrection F, even during Universe 6 versus Universe 7 tournament and the Goku Black story, Gohan just hasn't done anything. So what are your overall thoughts on Gohan having to fight Lavender? Post your comments down below, guys. Thank you all for watching. Tune in for the breakdown review alongside the prediction video for later on tonight, and I'll be seeing you all down in the comment section below. Take it easy, guys. Peace.